The first time I noticed something was off between Evan and me, it wasn't a dramatic fight or a silence that stretched too long. It was something small, a coffee cup left cold on the kitchen counter. He made it for me and then walked out mid-conversation to take a call from work. He didn't come back. Asterisk, that cup sat there for hours, untouched, the foam collapsing in on itself like a sigh. That's how our love felt, lately half warm, waiting for someone to return to it. Asterisk, we'd been together 4 years. Evan, always dependable. Always polished, with his button-down shirts and the faint scent of sandalwood. He was the kind of man who had a favorite wine glass, who knew how to iron a crease so sharp it could cut. I loved him for his quiet discipline, but lately I'd begun to feel like I was living beside him. Not with him? Then there was Julian. Julian was a friend of ours, or maybe more of mine than Evan's. Evan tolerated Julian, but I always sensed an edge behind his smiles whenever Julian visited. Julian, on the other hand, was chaotic in the way that sunlight through blinds is slanting, unpredictable, warm in places you didn't expect. He touched people when he laughed, leaned in too close, spoke with that velvet-soft drawl that made. You wonder if every word had a double meaning. Asterisk, when Evan told me he had to fly out to Chicago for a weekend conference, Julian texted not 10 minutes later, asterisk, he's leaving? Need help getting rid of the beer bottles from the game night? I didn't hesitate. Sure, tomorrow, asterisk, tomorrow. Saturday afternoon, the apartment felt different. Quieter, like it had let out a long breath. Julian arrived in his usual worn denim jacket and that crooked grin. He didn't knock, just walked in with 2 bags of groceries and a bottle of Red Dot asterisk. You said clean up. I brought dinner. I'm multitasking. Asterisk, we moved around the kitchen easily, too easily. Hissa. Hands brushed mine more than once accidentally on purpose. He whistled as he rinsed dishes. The air between us was filled with casual laughter, shared glances that lasted a beat too long. Asterisk, by dusk, the place was spotless. We sat on the couch, 2 wine glasses between us, a low jazz hum drifting from the speakers. Outside, the city lights flickered into life, and in here it felt like the world had tilted slightly off axis. Asterisk, Julian turned to me, his eyes glinting with something unreadable. Asterisk, do you ever think about how things could have been if you and I had met first? Asterisk, I laughed, but the sound came out thin. You mean without Evan? Asterisk, he shrugged, sipping. You were always too good at staying loyal. Asterisk, I'm still with him. Asterisk, but are you happy? Asterisk, the question lingered, hovering between us like heat. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked down at my glass, watching a ring of red swirl near the bottom. Asterisk, Julian shifted closer, not dramatically, but enough. His leg brushed mine. He didn't move away. Asterisk, can I ask you something? He said softly. I turned toward him. He reached up and tucked a strand of my hair behind my ear, not that it needed tucking. His fingertips lingered near my temple, then trailed down the side of my face, slow, almost reverent. Asterisk, my breath caught. I didn't know why. Asterisk, then his hand moved again, grazing my collarbone, resting at my shoulder. A pause, an inhale. Asterisk, he whispered. You look like someone who hasn't been touched in a while. Asterisk, I should have said something, laughed it off, pulled away. But I didn't. His hand slid down, slow, deliberate, and I couldn't believe where it stopped. Asterisk, my stomach flipped. Every part of me screamed to pull away, to push him off, to remind myself what this wasn't supposed to be, but I didn't move. We sat there in silence. His hand a question I wasn't ready to answer. Asterisk, outside, a car passed. Inside, the clock ticked like it was holding its breath. Asterisk, finally, I whispered, Julian, don't. Asterisk, but my voice cracked on the last syllable. It wasn't a command. It was a confession. He looked at me, eyes steady, soft. You don't want me to, he said, not as a question, but a truth, and that scared me more than anything. Morning filtered through the blinds in pale streaks, casting long lines across Julian's bare shoulder. He was still asleep, one arm draped lazily over the pillow where Evan should have been. I sat at the edge of the bed, clothed again, elbows on knees, head in hands. My breath felt thick, like I was inhaling guilt instead of air, asterisk I hadn't meant. For it to go that far, asterisk I'd told myself a dozen tiny lies, each one easier to believe than the last. It was just wine. It was just a touch. It was just a moment. But moments turn into choices, and choices have a way of curling around your throat. When you're not looking, asterisk Julian stirred behind me, letting out a sleepy sigh. "You're up early," he murmured, his voice hoarse with sleep. Asterisk, I never really slept. Asterisk, he sat up, rubbing his eyes, then reached for my shoulder. "Hey," he said, soft, careful. "You okay?" Asterisk, I nodded, though the motion felt like a betrayal in itself. Julian's touch had lost its thrill in the daylight. What was electric last night now felt raw and exposed. I stood up before he could say anything else and moved to the living room. Asterisk, the wine glasses were still on the table. The couch cushions askew, a shirt on the floor mine. Another lie left behind like evidence. I knelt to pick it up, hands trembling. Asterisk my phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Asterisk, just landed, missed you. Be home soon, asterisk, it hit me like a slap. The final line, the last thread holding the illusion together. I read it twice and locked the screen without replying. Asterisk, do you regret it already? Julian's voice drifted in from the hallway. He stood shirtless, arms crossed, trying to read my face. I didn't answer. He stepped closer. It wasn't just sex. You felt it too, didn't you? Asterisk, I felt 1,000 things, I said. None of them simple. Asterisk, Julian sat across from me, his expression softening. You don't have to pretend with me. I've seen you starving for something real for months. He stopped seeing you. I just gave you space to breathe. Asterisk, my hands clenched around the shirt. This isn't breathing. It's drowning. Asterisk, Julian looked away, jaw tight. You always put him first. Asterisk, he is my partner. Asterisk, then why did you let me touch you like that? Asterisk, I flinched. The question was cruel only because it was honest. Asterisk, Julian stood, frustration flickering in his eyes. You think you can rewind? This? Just erase it? Asterisk. No, I said, swallowing hard. But I can't pretend it means what you want it to mean either. There was silence between us, heavy, strained, final. He grabbed his jacket, slung it over his shoulder, and walked to the door. You weren't just cheating on Evan, he said without looking back. You were cheating on the version of yourself that thought you'd never be this kind of person. And then he left. Asterisk, the apartment felt hollow in his absence. I cleaned slowly, methodically erasing every sign he'd been there. I scrubbed the wine stains off the counter, folded the blanket from the couch, opened a window to let the air change. Asterisk, I moved like a ghost, numb, terrified of the sound Evan's key would make in the lock, terrified of what he might see in my eyes. Asterisk, the hours passed. I rehearsed my smile, practiced my voice, like a role I wasn't sure I deserved to play anymore. Asterisk, when Evan finally walked in, tie loosened, suitcase rolling behind him, he looked tired but happy. Hey, babe, he said, reaching for me. Asterisk, I hugged him. Too tightly. Asterisk, he pulled back, searching my face. Everything okay? Yeah, I lied. He smiled, brushing my cheek with his thumb. I missed you. Asterisk, I nodded, unable to speak, because I had missed him. And now I didn't know who that made me. Asterisk. Evan didn't say anything the first few days. Not about my sudden stiffness when he touched me. Not about how I flinched when he mentioned Julian's name in passing, he noticed. I could feel it in the pauses between his sentences, in the quiet way he studied me across the breakfast table. Asterisk, the silence between us had texture now. It creaked like old wood underfoot, always on the verge of cracking. Asterisk, one evening, 4 days after he returned, we sat on the couch watching a movie neither of us was really following. Evan leaned his head against my shoulder, his fingers absently tracing small circles on my wrist. I couldn't relax. Every touch felt undeserved. Every minute of his closeness like a mercy I hadn't earned. Asterisk, when the movie ended, he stood to stretch. His hand brushed the edge of the coffee table, and that's when he found it. Julian's lighter, a small, silver thing with a lion etched into the side, distinct, familiar, A gift from me to Julian last Christmas. Evan turned it over in his hand, frowning. Is this Julian's? My mouth went dry. He must have left it during the party. That was 2 weeks ago, he said, voice level, too level. Why is it under the couch? I stared at the TV, the pause credits still rolling. Silently. I don't know. Evan didn't press. He simply placed the lighter on the table, sat back down, and folded his hands in his lap. His expression didn't shift, but something behind his eyes pulled taut. I've been trying not to ask, he said, voice low. Trying not to see what I didn't want to see. My breath caught. But every time I look at you, he continued. You're not here, not really. Your body is, your voice is, but something else is missing. Evan, did you sleep with him? The question wasn't loud. He didn't shout. He didn't accuse. It was just a question, quiet and precise. Like the slice of a knife. I didn't answer. He nodded slowly, gaze dropping to the floor. That's all I needed to know. I'm sorry, I whispered, and the words sounded small, useless. For which part? He asked. For doing it, or for getting caught? I didn't know, maybe both. Maybe neither. Evan stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the city blinking in the dark. You know what hurts? He said, his voice shaking. It's not even the act itself. It's that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. That you came home and pretended we were still us, like nothing had happened? I was scared, I said, my voice barely audible. Of me? He asked, turning. Or of admitting you were capable of this? I looked away, shame curling deep in my stomach. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did? His words landed with finality. He walked past me, grabbed his coat, and paused at the door. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I need time. I need to remember who I was before I started doubting everything you said. The door closed behind him. The apartment was a cathedral of silence. I sat alone on the couch where it had all started, Julian's lighter glinting beside me like a scar in silver. Everything looked the same, furniture untouched, lights dimmed, curtains half-drawn, but everything had changed. I wanted to text Julian. But I didn't. I wanted to run after Evan, but I didn't. I just sat there, surrounded by the weight of everything unsaid. A week passed. Evan didn't call. I didn't call him either. I couldn't bring myself to. When he finally came back to collect some of his things, he didn't speak much. He moved with quiet efficiency, folding clothes, unplugging chargers, placing books into a canvas bag. When he passed the living room, he paused and looked at me, sitting on the same couch. I loved you, he said gently. I nodded, eyes stinging. I still love you, he smiled sadly. And then why did it feel so easy to forget that? He left without another word. It's been 3 months. I see Julian sometimes, but not in the way I used to. There's no warmth now, only echoes. We nod. We pretend it didn't happen. He moved on quicker than I did. Maybe he never really needed anything more than the moment we stole. As for me, I've learned that betrayal doesn't always come in firestorms or slam doors. Sometimes it comes quietly, dressed as a choice you think you'll only make once. I live alone now. The apartment feels colder, but honest. There's still a photo of Evan on the bookshelf, us at the beach, smiling like we didn't know anything. Yet, I keep it not to punish myself, but to remember what it cost, and what I'll never let myself forget.